So can you see my screen, everyone? Okay. All right. So in yesterday class, we have started Java programming. So as part of it, we have seen introduction, and then we have seen how we can install Java and Eclipse IDE. So we already installed and also seen a basic program, right? How to start creating a new Java project. And then we have seen how to create new Java package. And then we have seen how to create a new class and the simple programs we have seen. So from today onwards, we are going to start learning a new concepts, so Java basics. And any programming, if you want to start learning, so we need to start first like variables and how to create variables and how to use different data types, how to work with the data, which is most important. So when you start Java also, first we need to understand what is variables and how to define the variables and how to use data types. And then we will slowly learn how to use conditional statement, looping statement, arrays, strings, and so on. Okay. So as part of today's session, we will start learning variables and data types. So what is variable, first of all? So variable is a container which can hold some data. So whenever you want to write some program, you want to deal with some data. So to store data, we use something called variables. Variable is nothing but it is a character, or we can say a letter, which can hold some data. It is representing data. Okay, so to represent some data, we use something called variable. So for example, let us say I have to store a number. Let's say in mathematics, when I say x equal to 100. So 100 is what here? 100 is a value, or we can say data. So which we can store in a variable. So what is x here? X is a variable. And initially x value is 100. Then I can make x value 200. Now what is the value of x? The value of x will be the 200. That means the values of the variable can also change every time. So we can change the values of variables every time. So that is the reason we can call them as a variables. Variables means the value is always varies, means it is always changed. So here x is a variable and 100 is a value. So for example, if you want to store a price, an item price, you bought a one product and you want to store the price of an item. So then what you will do, you will create one variable like this, item price equal to, let's say 100.25, something like this. Now here, this is a value and item price is a variable. So what is the use of this variable here is we can store some data in a variable. That means a variable is a container which can hold some data, which can hold some type of data. It can be number, or it can be decimal, or it can be string, it can be character, whatever it is. So the variable is a container which can hold some data. Whatever data we have assigned, we can hold the data in a variable. So variables are used to representing a data. So normally whenever you say variable, that is always representing a data. Okay, example, suppose I want to store age of the person. So normally what you will do, age equal to, let's say 30. So here, this is a value and this is the variable. So suppose I want to store a name of the person. Let's say name equal to some x. So here, this is a value and this is a variable. So what is the use of variable here? We can store some data in a variable. So variable is a container which can hold some data, which is represents a data. A variable is represents some data. Okay. Now in Java, if you want to create a variables, we cannot directly create. For example, if you want to create a variable like this, x equal to 100, we cannot directly write like this in Java. And similarly, suppose if you want to store a name of the person, I can say name equal to, let's say John, like this. I cannot directly store this value in the variable. So before creating this variable, we have to specify something called data type. Okay, something called data type. So what is the data type? So data type represents what type of data we are storing into the variable. What type of data we are storing into the variable. Accordingly, we have to specify the data type. For example, here 100 is a number and we are storing the 100 into X. So X should be int type of data. So int is a data type. Similarly here, John is a string. So we are storing string data in a variable. So this variable should be string. Similarly, suppose item price, I'm storing a decimal number here. So when I store decimal number, this variable should be float like this. So these are all called data types. So without having this data type, we cannot directly store the value in a variable. So whenever you create a variable, you must specify the data type. Now, what is data type here? Data type is representing what type of data we are storing into the X. So we always work with variables along with the data type. So when I define some variable, you must specify the data type. So without a data type, there is no variable. But how we will decide the data type depends on the data, what type of data we are storing into the variable. Accordingly, we will choose one data type and we can specify the data type for that particular variable. So later I will discuss what are the data types are available and which one we have to use, where we have to use all those things in detail. But first of all, let us talk about variables. We'll see some examples about variables. But when you create a variables, you must specify the data type. Okay. So let me show you some examples here. I will specify some, I will define some variable with some data types. So now if I suppose I can say X equal to 100, which is basically a number. So definitely X should be int data type. Int is nothing but an integer. In Java, when I create a variable as an int, we can store only numbers without having any decimal, only numbers we can store. And similarly, if I want to store item price, let's say 10.25, this is a decimal number. If you want to store a decimal number, the data type should be float. And similarly, if you want to store age of the person, then the data type should be again int. And if you want to store name of the person, so basically it is a string. String means what? Collection of characters. So whenever you define a string, that should be put inside the double quotations. This is a Java syntax. In the double quotations, you can provide the string. String is nothing but collection of characters. So now what is the type of this variable is string type of variable. Now I want to store a grade of a student, grade. So grade is normally single character, A, B, C, something like this. So whenever you want to store a single character in a variable, that we should keep inside the single quotations. Let's say grade is A, that I can store like this. So now what is the type of this variable is char. So depends on data, what type of data we are storing into the variable. Accordingly, we have to select or we have to choose right data type. Here, these are all comes under different data types. Okay. Now we'll see some example about the variables and then we will discuss in detail about the data types. Now go to Eclipse. And yesterday we already installed this Eclipse, and people who have joined today newly, please go through and please watch the yesterday session video. Okay, you will understand how to install Java and Eclipse. Now this is my project name and this is my SRC is a root package, and day one is another package, sub package, which we have created yesterday. Now I'm going to create another package under SRC, new package, day 2. So today I'm going to create another package. So package is nothing but what? It is just like a folder. And here don't take package info.java. We don't need this. Simply specify the name of the package and say finish. So now it is created a new empty package. Now, whenever you start writing a new Java program, what is the first thing we need to do? We have to create a new class. So right click on this package, new class. And here we have to provide the name of the class. Yesterday we have seen how to, what are the naming conventions which we have to follow while providing the class name, right? So here I'm giving some name to class, let's say variables demo. And if you select this checkbox, the main method will automatically included within the class. And if you're not selected, then it will just create a only class. And inside the class, we have to write our own main method. So let's select this option, public static void main, and then click on finish. You don't need to change any options here. Just provide only class name and method, public static void main, select this checkbox and simply say finish. That's it. So it is now created a new class. This is a package. In which package we are in, it will show you in the first line. And this is the class name, public class variables demo. And this is the starting point of the class. And you can have this curly brace in the next line also, no problem. And within the class, this is the starting point of the class. This is the ending point. Or we can say this is scope of the class. And inside the class, we have a method. So this is called main method. Public static void main string args. This is a parameter. And this is a simple comment. We can just remove this. So this is a structure. Now, once you write the structure, we can start writing the program. Now, where we have to write our code? Only inside the main method, we have to write. Now, I will define some variables. Observe this very carefully. There are many ways to create a variables in Java. So I will show you different approaches and different methods to create a variables and how to use those variables, how to store the data. We'll try to understand that first, and then we will discuss data types. So to create a variable in Java, first we have to specify the data type and then variable. For example, let's say int a. And every statement will end with the semicolon. In Java, every statement will end with the semicolon. So if I leave like this, I have not assigned any data to this. Just I created a simple or single variable here, int a. I have not assigned any data. So if you leave this variable like this without data, we call it as a just a declaration. We just declare the variables. We haven't used it so far, and we haven't assigned any data to the variable. We have just declared the variable. So once you declare the variable, later you can use that variable. Later you can assign the data into the variable. For example, in the next line, I will assign the data like this. And this is called assignment. Assignment. So for declaring the variable, I have written one statement. For assigning the data into the variable, I have created another statement. If I look at here, int is a data type, a is a variable. So this is a declaration. I have not assigned any data. Later, I have assigned some data to the variable, a equal to 100. So when you're assigning the data to the variable, this variable is already declared here with the integer data type. So when I define the value in the variable or when you store the value in a variable, you no need to write data type again. It will give you syntax error. So why it is giving syntax error? Because this a is duplicate local variable. Duplicated means this variable is already created, already declared with the integer data type. So you no need to specify the data type again like this, a equal to 100. So this is called declaration. This is called assignment. Sometimes we don't know the value, but later we will try to assign the value. In those cases, what we can do, we can simply declare the variables. Later, you can assign the data into the variables. Whenever you know the data, you can assign it. This is declaration. Another one is assignment. Now, suppose I already know the value of the variable. I can simply write one single statement. Assignment, declaration, and assignment. Together, I want to write one single statement. So then what you can do, I can just comment this. Now, single statement, int a equal to 100. One single statement, data type, variable, and then value, statement end with the semicolon. So this is single statement. Here, what we have done, declaration plus assignment. We have done both the things in one single line, declaration and then assignment. Now, what is the value of a here? 100. 100 is the value of a. Now, I want to print it. I want to get the value of a. I want to just print the output. value of A I want to print. So what you can do now, you can say system.out.println. Inside this, you can just specify the variable. So what will happen now? We just specify only variable name. Variable means what? It holds some data. So what is the value of A? 100. So when I print the value of A, so this will print 100. You can see this is a value. So A value is 100. We have assigned. When you print the value of A, we are getting 100. And can we put this in the double quotes like this? When you put the double quotes, what will happen? Now, A is not a variable now. It is just a string. So when you run this, what will happen? It will just print as it is. Whatever you put in the double quotations, it's printed as it is. Okay, we don't do like this. So whenever you want to get the value from the variable, or whenever you want to print the value from the variable, you have to just specify the variable inside the print statement, system.out.println. So then you will get the value from the variable like this. Now, initially here A value is 100. And after that I have printed value of A. Then I want to change the value of A. I want to change. Is it possible to change this value later? Not here. I have already defined the statement and I have printed some value from A. Now, after printing the value of A, then I want to change the value of A. Yes, still we can change. How to change it? Simply you can say A equal to 200. And again, you no need to write the data type. Here, data type, you no need to write. You should not write. Why? Because this A is already specified with data type, integer data type. So second time when I am trying to use this variable, you no need to write the data type. Simply I can say A equal to 200. Now, when you print A value here, what is an output you will get here? Initially, A value 100. Then we printed A value here. And here it is got printed 100. Now, after that, I am changing A value equal to 200. And then I'm printing A value here. So because we already changed it here we will get a latest value. So the old value is already replaced with the new value. Okay. So if I print this, initially 100 is got printed from this particular statement. After that, A become 200. Then when I print A value here, it is printing 200. Initially it is 100. Now it becomes 200. So what we have understood based on this, the values of the variable can always varies. That means we can always change the value of the variables whenever it is needed. Okay, whenever it is needed, we can always change the values of the variables. They are not constant. Okay. So this is a simple example, how to create a variables and assign the data in one statement. And we have get the value from the variables. Now I will show you different approaches to create a variables. Let's come to this part. Now let me show you different approaches or different methods to create a variables. There's a first approach. I'll say approach 1. So I'm trying to define some variables here. Let's say int A equal to 100. This is one variable, semicolon. Int B equal to 200. This is another variable. Int C equal to 300. This is another variable. So totally how many variables I have defined? 3 variables, A, B, and C. A contains 100, B contains 200, C contains 300. 3 variables with 3 different values. Now I can directly print A value, B value, C value by using print statement. So this is one approach. We can directly define the different variable names. We can directly assign the data. This is one approach. Now same thing we can do in another way. Just observe. Here in first approach, what I have done to define 3 variables, I have written 3 different lines. First int A equal to 100, int B 200, C 300. Now if I look at this one, approach 2. See this. In the second approach, observe. First, I will create a variables int A, comma, B, comma, C. All 3 are belongs to same data type, right? So instead of writing this data type into multiple times, I can simply write only one time and specify what are all variables I want to create. Say int a comma b comma c. You can create any number of variables like this by separating comma. After that, I will try to assign the data. So a equal to 100, b equal to 200, c equal to 300, like this. This is another way. So if you can directly assign the data to the variables like this, or first you create a variables and then you can assign the data. So this is a declaration. This is called assignment. In the first approach, we have seen that. Declaration, then assignment. Here, we declared 3 variables by separating comma. And you don't need to write like int a, int b, int c multiple times again. So you can simply write one single line to create all the variables. Then you can assign the data. This is one more approach. Now, suppose if they are belongs to, and this is applicable only if these variables are belongs to same data type. Just hold on, I'll come to that part. Okay. So if these variables are belongs to same data type, then only this syntax is possible. Suppose a is equal to int, b is equal to 4, to c is a string, then this syntax is not possible. Okay. Because we specified the data type only one time, then we can add multiple variables. So obviously all the variables are belongs to same data type. Okay. Now there is another approach. See this, approach 3. In this, I will define int a equal to 100, comma, b equal to 200, comma, c equal to 300. This is another approach. So in this, we define variable, we define data type only once, and along with the variable, we also assign some data. So a equal to 100, comma, b equal to 200, comma, c equal to 300. So we can have n number of variables like this. This is also correct notation. So this is another approach. But if you look at this, second approach and third approach are possible only if these variables are belongs to same data type. Okay, same data type, then only it is possible, otherwise not. Suppose if these variables are related to different data types, like one is a string, another one is float, another one is integer, then go with the first approach. Okay, so approach 3 is for if all the variables are belongs to same data type. Okay, so this approach 2 is applicable only if all the variables are belongs to same data type. Same thing for third approach also. Third approach is also applicable if all the variables are belongs to same data type. And if you have a different data types of data, then go with the first approach. Here, this is an integer, this is a float, this is a string. Like this, you can define different data types. So if you have different data types, then you can go with if all the variables belongs to different data types. Okay, this approach 1 we have to follow if variables are belongs to different data types. And approach 2 and approach 3 is applicable if the variables are belongs to same data type, because we specify all the variables with one single data type. So ABC are integers. Here also ABC are integers. So this is also possible. So these are the 3 different approaches which we have to create a variables. Now I want to get the values from the variables. So here I have defined 3 variables, A, B, C, and they have some data. Now I want to print the values of A, B, and C. So how can we get the data from A, B, C? If you want to extract the value from the variable, you can write system.out.println. Simply you can say A, variable name. So that will print value of A. And then I can say here B. So this will print the value of B. Then it will print value of C. So I can directly specify the variables inside the println. When I execute this, this will print the values of A, B, C. So the value of A is 100 and value of B is 200. The value of C is 300. Okay, now if I look at this output here, you cannot recognize whether A value is 100 or B value is 200 or C value is 300. Exactly, we don't know what is the value of 100, what is the value of 200 and 300, right? So you can write more meaningful message in the println statement. So for example, here I'm printing just only 100, but I don't know whether this 100 is belongs to A, B or C. So I can write some meaningful message here. In the double quotations, you can write the value of A is, okay, this, whatever you put in the double quotes, it is exactly printed in the console window. After that, this is a variable, right? You need to do something called concatenation like this. Concatenation. Okay, so the value of, let me finish. I will show you all the combinations. Once I finish, then you can ask the questions. Okay, just concentrate what I'm explaining here. I will show you different things. Let me first finish and then you can ask the questions. Okay, so system.out.println. So I can write some meaningful message like this. So the value of A is colon and A. So these two are two separate entities, right? So this is a string which we are directly printing. Okay, for example, I remove this A. Now what will happen? Whatever you put in the double quotes, it is exactly printed in the console window. See here, the value of A is, that's it. But here I want to print the value. So how can we do this? You have to do something called concatenation. Plus is a concatenation operator. So when I say plus A, then what happens? Whatever the value we have assigned to the A, that will be printed as it is in the console window along with the string. So when I execute now, we can say this is more meaningful message. The value of A is 100, right? So like this, we can simply write for B also. We can say the value of B is and concatenated with B. And same thing here. You can say the value of C is, and here you can say concatenation. So we can also customize this message more meaningful manner. Right? So now we can see it is more meaningful. The value of A is 100, value of B is 200, value of C is 300. Okay. So like this, we can extract the values from the variables. Now here, if I look at this, I have printed the values in the different statements. When I print A value, I have written one print statement. When I print B value, I have written another statement. When I print C value, I have written another statement. So instead of writing multiple statements, can I write one single print statement which will print all the values of A, B, and C? Can we print one single statement? By using one single print statement, can we print the values of all the variables? You can still print it, but we need to slightly customize the statement. Let me show you how we can do this. System.out.println. Here you cannot directly say A, comma, B, comma, C. This is not allowed. Comma operator not allowed in Java. Okay. But I want to print all three values with single line. So then how can we do this? Can we use concatenation like this? A first value we will print, then concatenated by B, then concatenated by C. Is it possible? When I use concatenation, then what will happen now? Because A, B, C are the integers, right? So when I use plus operator, they will do addition. Instead of printing the 100, 200, 300, just it is added just 600. It is performing addition operation. So we are not getting exact values. So how can we print all the values in one single line? Okay. So if you want to print this, we can simply customize it. So how can we customize? First, you print a value. Okay. And then concatenate with some space like this. And then again, one more concatenation. After printing this B value, concatenate with some space again. And then again, concatenation. Means we have to give some space between each and every variable. And this space is just like a string. Okay, now if I print this, run as Java application, now we can see all three values in one single line. Okay, because if I don't use this string between these numbers, then what will happen? It will perform addition operation. All three numbers, it is added. So we are not getting exact value. So if you add this space in between these variables, this is considered as a string. Even though if you don't have anything in the double quotations, it is empty or space. So when you concatenate with the space, then first it is printed a value, then it is giving some space. After that printed b value, then given some more space, then printed c value. So like this, we can print all variables values in single line. So this is also right. Okay. So this is how we can simply work with the variables. We can simply work with the variables. So these are the different approaches. So if you have a different variables with a different type of data, you can go with the first approach. And if you have variables belongs to same data type, then you can go with approach 1 or approach 2. Anything is fine. And we can extract the data from the variable just by using variable name in the println statements. Okay. So is this clear, everyone? Please put in the chat box, confirm in the chat box. Is it clear so far about variables? And don't go beyond this. So whatever so far I have covered, is this clear? So we have seen all the combinations. The last syntax is simple. I just printed a variable A. Okay. And then this is called concatenation operator. So concatenation means in the next example, you will understand more about this plus operator. And basically, plus is a concatenation operator. Concatenation means what? It will join multiple things. So here, A, B, C, 3 different variables are there, right? So these different variables we have joined with the space. Here it is one join, here it is another joining. Okay, we combined 3 variables, but still we want to get a values from it. So I just put concatenation with the space. In the next example, you will understand more about this. Okay. All right. So this is all about variables. So what is variable? So far, what we understood, variable is a container which can hold some data. And to representing the data, we have to create variables. And the values of the variables always varies. That's the reason we call them as a variables. Okay. And when you create a variable, you must specify the data type. Without data type, we cannot create a variable. And how to decide the data type? Based on the data. So what type of data we are storing into variable, accordingly, we have to choose the right data type. Okay. So now we have discussed more about variables. Now let us try to discuss about data types. So guys, if you have any questions or any queries, let us discuss at the end of the session. Okay, so in yesterday's class, if you have any issues at the installations and everything, don't discuss now. Let us focus completely on your session first. So don't distract your mind unnecessarily. Okay, so first listen things. At the end of the session, you can share your screen and you can discuss all your queries. Okay, so don't think about all those things. Let us focus first of all. Right, so we have done with the variables. Now let us move on to the data types. Okay. Your focus will be lost if you're thinking about something else. You're asking something else means you're not focusing here. So please focus. And if you have any queries, we will discuss at the end of the session. We have a separate time for that. Okay. So what is data type? What is data type? At the beginning, I told you, data type is nothing but what? It represents the type of data. Very simple definition. So data type is always represent the type of data. Right? So represents type of data. So whenever you store some data in a variable, we have to specify the data type. So that we have understood so far. So whenever you specify some data or whenever you want to store some data in a variable, you have to specify the data type. But what are the data types are available in Java and which data type we have to choose while creating the variables? Okay. In Java, we have so many data types are there. Mainly we can divide it into 2 categories. two categories of data types. One is called primitive data types. This is a categorization, primitive data types. Second category is non-primitive. And these are also called derived data types, also called collections. Okay, so these are the two different types. Categorization represents type of data. So primitive data types, non-primitive data types. Primitive data types and non-primitive data types. Non-primitive is also called as derived data types or collections. So I will list out whatever primitive, whatever non-primitive. And non-primitive, these collections we will separately discuss in another sessions, which is very, very huge concept. So today, let us focus only on primitive data types. Okay. Now, in the primitive data types, what are all different types are available? And we can again categorize into four different types. To represent the numbers, we have four data types. One is called byte. All are lowercase characters. Byte, short, int, long. So these four data types we will use to represent number without decimal. Okay. Byte, short, int, long. So these four data types, we can use one of the data type to represent a number without having decimal. If you have a number without doesn't have any decimal, then you can use either byte, short, int, long. Four data types are available to represent the numbers. Now, suppose if you have a decimal number. To represent a decimal number, we have two data types. One is float. Second one is double. Float and double. These two data types we can use to represent decimal numbers. Decimal number. If you have a decimal number, we choose either float or double. But again, you will have a question. Which one we have to choose? Again, byte, short, int, long. There are four data types are there to representing the number. Which one we have to choose? That depends on size of the data. I will also discuss that. So to representing the numbers without a decimal, we have four data types: byte, short, int, long. And to representing the decimal number, we have two data types, either float or double. And to represent a single character, we have one data type called char. So this particular data type will represent single character that we should keep in the single quotations. Single character is always put inside the single quotations, represent. Single quote we have to use. Character data type. Now there is another data type called boolean. Boolean. And this particular data type we can use to store either true or false. Boolean value. It is accepted that variable can hold only either true or false, only one value. We cannot store any other type of data in a Boolean variable. So these are the different primitive data types. Byte, short, int, long is for number without a decimal. Float and double is for decimal number. Char is for representing a single character that we should keep inside the double quotations. And Boolean is another data type which we can use is for true or false. We can keep either true or false in the Boolean variable. These are all primitive data types which we are commonly used in our programming. Now, non-primitive derived or collections. Here we have string, which is very popularly used. Array list, hash map, hash set. There are many more are there. So there are so many collections are there, so many derived data types, etc., etc. So these are all comes under non-primitive derived collections. And if you look at this, these are started with uppercase characters. Every type is started with uppercase character, whereas primitive types are started with all lowercase characters. You need to just recognize easily. Okay. So string comes under non-primitive type. It is not a primitive type. But what is the difference? What is the difference between primitive? What is the difference between primitive and non-primitive? And when we have to use primitive, where we have to use non-primitive. Primitive data types we can use to store single data at a time. Okay, for example, just to try to understand this. I have different students. I have, let's say, so many students are studying in a class. Now, to representing the student ID, I can create one variable like this, right? Int student ID equal to, let's say, 101. So here what I have done, I created only one single variable, which can hold only one single value at a time. So whenever you create a variable that can hold only single value at a time. So after you change, for example, STUID, you become 102, then what happens? 101 is replaced with the 102. Still, it is having only one value at a time. That means all primitive data types, we can store only one value at a time in a variable. Okay, that variable can hold only one value at a time. All primitive types. But sometimes we will have some requirement like we have to store multiple values into single variable. Multiple data into single variable. That means single variable can hold different sets of data, different type of data. For example, let us say I have 100 students are studying in my class. And to store every student ID, how many variables you have to create? Suppose let's say 100 students are studying in a class. For each student is having ID, student ID. So I want to store 100 student IDs. So how many variables we have to create normally? 100 variables are required, right? To store 100 IDs, we have to create 100 variables. When you create 100 variables in a program, it is very, very difficult to manage, right? You cannot refer the variables, very difficult. So instead of creating 100 variables, if I store 100 IDs into one single variable, it is very easy to manage. In that case, we use non-primitive. For example, array list. If you look at array list, if you create a variable with array list, we can store multiple values in one single variable. Even same array also comes under non-primitive. If I create an array variable, so for example, let's say int a, okay, is equal to new int of 100. If I define like this is called array. In the coming sessions, I will explain in detail. Just for now, understand. So it is not a normal variable now. A is a array variable. Array means what? It can hold multiple values. How many values it can hold depends upon the size we specified here. This is called size. When I say 100, in A, I can store 100 values. I can store 100 values in A. So as soon as you created a variable like this, internally what happens? It will create 100 memory locations like this. The variable name is called A. And 100 we specified the size. So here it will start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. And these are the memory locations. In these locations, we can maintain the data. Let's say here 101, 102, 103. These are all student IDs. So to represent the data, what we can do by using index, we can access. Suppose when I say A of 2, that is representing this one, this data. When I say A of 1, then it is representing this one. When I say A of 0, then it is representing first one. So with single variable, we will able to manage all the data. This means multiple sets of data we can manage with single variable. That means primitive data types allowed single value at a time in a variable. At a time, only one single value is allowed in a variable. Non-primitive, we can store multiple values in a variable. For example, let's take the string. How to create a string variable? String s equal to, let's say, welcome. I have written like this, semicolon. See this statement, string s equal to welcome. S is what? String type. So we can store multiple values. See, these are all multiple characters are not W-E-L-C-O-M-E. They are multiple characters. So multiple characters we can store, which is called as a string. But if you want to store single character, then what you will do? You will use primitive data type, char, C equal to, let's say, A, single quotation. So if it is a primitive, it can hold only one single value. If it is a non-primitive, it can hold multiple values. That is a major difference between primitive data types and non-primitive data types. So for now, just understand only this much. In the coming sessions, I will elaborate more about non-primitive data types. We will discuss each and every non-primitive data type in detail. Okay, there are multiple sessions we'll take. So let us focus on primitive data types. Okay, so byte, short, int, long comes under. We can use them to represent the numbers without having decimal. Float and double is for decimal number. Char is for single character. Boolean is for true and false. If you want to store a string, we can use non-primitive type. String is a non-primitive type. Okay. Now, so let us see one example. How can we use these primitive data types? And one more thing. If you look at this first one, to representing the number without having decimal, we have 4 types: byte, short, int, long. But again, which one we will choose? Suppose I want to store 100. Which one is suitable? Byte, short, int, or long? Or suppose if I have a very big number, let's say I have a 10 digits number, then which one is suitable? So you have to choose the right type based upon the data you have, based upon the size of data. Okay. But how we will know that which one we have to select? Byte, short, int, long. So Java is provided that information. So I will share some small table here, and accordingly we can easily find out. So which data type is having, what is the size, and how much size of data the particular data type is allowed. Okay. So let me just put one small table here so that you can understand. Okay. Now just look at this. This is a table, and this is given by Java, guys. We haven't designed anything here new. So first let us record the byte. So these 4, byte, short, int, long, these 4 are for numeric data types. We can use it for storing numbers without having decimals, right? So when you create a variable with byte, right? So we can store the value which is between inside this range, minus 128 to 128. Even negative values also we can store in a variables. Not only positive values, we can also store negative number in a variable. For example, can create int a equal to 100 you can store, which is a positive number, and you can also store a equal to minus 100. You can also store negative number. Okay, positive as well as negative numbers also allowed. So if you create a variable as a byte, we can store numbers between this particular range, between minus 128 to 127 is the range. And if the number is beyond this range, you cannot store. So let's say this is a graph 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 here, plus 128. Here, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3 here, minus 128. So between this range, whatever numbers are comes under, all these numbers we can store in a byte variable, which is very smaller size actually. Byte is a starting size. So when you create a variable with the byte, so let's say byte a, then I can store in a between this minus 128 to plus 128. Between this range, whatever numbers comes, we can store those numbers in a variable. Okay, if you remember this range, you will know exactly which data type we have to use. Byte. Suppose if you have a number more than this, little bigger, then you can go with the short data type. So short will allow the numbers between this range, minus 32,768 to 32,767. So between this range, whatever numbers comes, all these numbers we can store in the short data type. And again, if your number is exceeded this number, let's say you have 33,700, something like this. 33,700. This is exceeded this number. So now, is it possible to store in the short data type? No. Okay, because this number is higher than this last number, right? So it is exceeded the range. So we need to go to higher levels. Then we can go to integer data type. So when you create a variable as integer data type, we can store very big number. So between this minus 2147, 483, 6482, 2147, 483, 647. So this is the maximum number. So between this range, all the numbers we can store in integer variables. And if the number is even though very bigger, then long. So you can see this is the maximum range. So most of the times we don't go more than this number. This is a maximum number which is allowed in the numbers. So long means if I create any variable with a long data type, I can store any number between this particular range. Okay. For example, I have created a variable with a long data. Let's say L some X. Okay. So now I have stored in X just only 100. Will it work or not? Will it work or not? I just created a variable long X and then I have stored 100 into X. Is it valid or not? Will it work or not? Yes, obviously it will work. Because what is the range of long here? Between these two, the 100 fall, right? But what is the disadvantages in this? If you do like this, what will be the problem? Yes, unnecessarily memory will be wasted. Why? Because as soon as you say long data type, for X, their huge memory will be allocated because the range is very high, right? The huge memory is allocated for X, but you are storing very small number. So you are just using only this much of space. So rest of the space will be what? Wasted. Okay. So that is the reason based on the size of data, you can rightly choose particular data type. So that will not waste on our time. Okay, suppose I have taken byte, some X. Now I'm trying to store some number like this. Is it possible or not? I've taken byte variable X and then I'm storing a bigger number. It is not between minus 128 to 127. More than higher, right? More than it is exceeded 127. So this is not possible. We are trying to store higher value in the lowest space. Not possible. Okay. But you can store lowest value in higher space. Even though the memories got wasted, still you can store lowest value in higher space. Okay. So most of the time, which one is moderate here is integer. So whenever you are working with the integer data types, most of the times we try to prefer int. And if your numbers is more than integer, more than this range, then you obviously go for long data type. But very rare case, we use that one. Okay. So this is most moderate data type int to representing the numbers. So guys, now you understood. So why they have provided 4 data types for to representing the numbers. Based on the size of the data, we have to choose the right data type. And same thing for double also, like decimal. So these 2 data types are available for storing decimal numbers, float and double. So float is nothing but what? It is allowed 4 bytes of size. Means what? Can store fractional numbers. Means fractional numbers in the sense decimal numbers sufficient for storing 7 decimal digits. Suppose if you have a number like this. So after decimal, max 7 digits are allowed. If you create a variable with the float data type, in that number, in that variable, you can store max 7 decimals. Max 7 decimals are allowed if you create a float variable. And before decimal, you can have any number, but after decimal, max 7 decimal numbers are allowed. And if you have more number of values, then you can go with a double. 8 bytes, almost double. That means after decimal, up to 15 decimal numbers are allowed. After decimal, 15 numbers are allowed. Okay, that is the difference between float and double. So most of the times we will try to use double. This is the moderate data type. And then we have a boolean. So this is only one data type which can hold only 1 bit. We can store either true or false, nothing else. And char allowed 2 bytes. That means only one single character we can store. If we create any variable with the char type, in that variable we can store only one single character or one single letter. Okay. So these are all primitive data types. So now let us see one example, practical demo, how to use these data types, how to create a variables with the different data types and how to access the data from those variables. Let me show you one example. So far everything is clear. Please confirm in the chat box, everyone. So what is variable? Why we need to create a variables? What is the data type? Why we need data types? And how many types of data types are available in Java? And what is the difference between primitive and non-primitive data types? So these are all most important and very basic and fundamentals. Now, let us move on to the next example, data types. So now I'm going to create a new class to demonstrate data types. Let's create a new class. And my class name is, you can give any name to the class, no problem, but don't give any spaces, numbers, and also simply say data types demo. Okay, I'm taking main method also. Click on finish. Yeah, now it is created a new class which contains main method. This is a simple comment I can just take. All right. Now let us see a small demo on data types. First, let us start with the numeric data types. Numeric data. So here I'm just keeping the comment so that you can easily understand the code later. Okay, numeric data types. So I will define two variables. You can see here int a 100, b equal to 200. Can we define the variable like this? Is it valid syntax or not? Is it valid syntax or not? Yes, both are same data types, right? If a and b are both are same data types, you can create number of variables in one single line. Right. So now I just want to print the value of a, system.out.println, and I just print value of a. Okay. And also I'll writing simple meaningful message. I can say the value of a is, and then concatenation. And same thing, I'll try to print the value of b. So here I'm printing value of b. Now I want to perform sum of a and b. I want to add these two numbers. I want to add these two numbers. Simply what you can say, a plus b. Right? So let's try to execute. So now we got value of a is 100. The value of b is b, and then 200. The total is 100, 300. So now I want to write more meaningful message here for the third statement. So what I can do is I can say the sum of a and b is, okay, now I'm keeping concatenation operator. Just observe this. I just written more meaningful message, just like how I have done in the previous two statements, concatenation. Here I just printed the value of a. Here I'm printing value of b. And here I'm printing the value of a plus b, right? Concatenation. Now, if I just observe the output, see now how it is got printed. So this is not our expectation, right? So we have to get 300, but instead it is just printed the value of a and b directly. So what exactly happening here is, first it is printed as it is in the console window, and then concatenated with the a, 100 is got printed, then immediately concatenated with the b. Because why it is got printed like this? For example, if you do like this, directly if you print a plus b without having this message, so I'm just removing this message, I can simply say a plus b, right? So in this particular case, you will get a 300. But when you use same a plus b with this concatenation, you are not getting the right value. What is happening here is, before printing this a plus b, you are concatenating with a string actually. So when you're concatenating with this with a string, what will happen is, here it is confused. There are two plus operators are there. So whether is it do you want to do addition or do you want to do concatenation? What exactly you want to do? So because when I use two plus operators, one after another, it is basically confusing. So it is directly as it is printed a value and b value. But still, I want to get a plus b. The addition of two numbers I want to get. So simply you can put that expression in the bracket. Okay. So now what happens? First, this expression will be executed. A plus b will be executed, which is 300. Then it is concatenated with this. So now you will get the right value. Okay. So now we can see the right value. So this is how we can simply use numeric data type. So now let us see decimal number. So in the decimal, okay. So again, in the integer, we have a different types, right? Short, we have short. And before short, do we have any other numeric types? Let us say I have byte, short, int, long. So we have seen integer. Now let us see byte, short, and long. Byte, that's a byte. Byte, b equal to. So what is the range of byte data type? Minus 128 to 127, right? So let's say 125 I'm storing. Byte b equal to, b is already used this variable, a and b already used. So we have to give some different variable here. Same variable name you cannot refer multiple times because b is already created with integer. So same variable name you cannot use. So we have to use some different name. Let's say by. by is a variable name. And now I want to just print this value. You can say by. So this is byte. And similarly short, if you want to use short, sh equal to, in the short, what is the number I can store? What is the maximum and minimum range? This is the maximum range, 32767. 32767. Okay, so that is a value, is a maximum range. Between this range, you can use anything. Let's say 35. 35. You can just use 35, 35. Can we store? 35, 35, yes. So this is a short. Then you can print. So before using the data type, you need to know the range actually. So if you know the range exactly, you will know exactly which data type is apt for your data. And then byte, short. And what is the next one? Long. Long is for very big value. I can say long, L equal to, can put very long data type. So I can say very large number, semicolon. And then trying to print value called L. Okay, now just observe this. When I use integer or when I use byte, when I use short, there is no syntax error. But when you create a long variable, when you create a variable with a long data type, after specifying some data here, it is giving some error. The literal of type int is out of range. Okay, so whenever you specify the value in the long variable, you have to write something called literal. Means what? At the end of the value, we can simply say lowercase l or uppercase L. This is mandatory. Okay, not for every data type, especially for long and float. So for these two data types, we have to add literal, which is representing with L. Okay, it can be lowercase like this, or it can be uppercase. Okay, now I have assigned some data. You can put any data, any size, like say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maximum number. So now I'm printing the long. Just observe this, what will happen. So when I run this, see 125 is a by value. So 125 is got printed. Then 3535 is got printed, which is short data type. And now when you come to the long, this is actual value. Actual values are exactly it is printed. This L will not print because this is a symbol which is representing a literal. Okay, and especially for long and float. So these two particular data types, we have to specify literal. Okay, literal in the sense because it is a long data type, you have to say L. If it is a float data type, then you have to say F. That's called literal. Okay. So these are all numeric data types. Without decimals, we can use either byte, short, long, or int. Right. Now, let us see the decimal numbers. Decimal numbers. And in the decimal, we have two data types. Decimal numbers, we have two data types, float, double. Float and double. Okay, float is a smaller, double is a bigger number. Float means it is allowed 7 decimals. Double is allowed 15 decimals. Okay, now first let us start with the float. Float, let's create one variable called item price. Let's say 15.5. And just created one variable. Now just observe, when I assign some data to the variable, it is giving an error. What it is expecting? It is expecting cannot convert from double to float. So this is actually decimal number. We are trying to store in a float variable. So what we need to do is we have to specify the literal. It can be lowercase f or it can be uppercase f. Anything is fine. Okay, and then you can print the value. You can directly print item underscore price. Okay, now we can see 15.5 I have given, and same thing is got printed. Okay, now if you have more numbers, like more decimal numbers, okay, then you can use double as a dbl equal to, and I can say bigger decimal number like this. And then you can directly, here there is no literal required, you can directly print it as a dbl. So for double, we don't need any literal, we can directly write. So this is mostly we used double, run as Java application. So now we got the value exactly, how much value we have stored, we got it. So the literals we have to add only for two data types. One is for long. So here literal is needed. And also for float data type also we need to add literal. Okay, here f is f or small f, anything is fine. But here for long, use either capital L or small l. At the end of the value, you have to specify this. So these two are the decimal numbers. And now let us see the character. So char is another data type. So to representing the single character, we use char data type. You can say char. C is already used, so I'm just giving some different name. Let's say grade. And single characters we always keep inside the single quotations. Single character always represent within the single quotations. So multiple characters if you want to store, then what you will do? If you want to store multiple characters, what you will do? We go with string. Okay, so string can store multiple characters, right? String, non-primitive type. So I can just print grade. So this is simple character data type. So whatever value we have assigned here, we just printed. Only one single character is allowed. Suppose if you want to store multiple characters, then we have to use a string. String, suppose name equal to, let's say John. So multiple characters, whenever you specify, keep inside the double quotations. Okay, that is representing the string. So strings will represent with the double quotations. String is a non-primitive type. Okay, then you can see the difference also. You can see normal primitive types appear in the different color and the string is appear in the different color. In the string, S is the uppercase character. And rest of all data types, primitive data type is start with the lowercase characters. Now you can directly print name. See name. So if you have a single character, keep in the single quotation and use char data type. If you have a multiple characters, then keep inside the double quotations and use string data type. So now we got a chart. Okay. Now, in the string, there are multiple combinations which we have. In the next example, okay, so let me show you here itself. So in the multiple combinations, let me write something here. You guys can tell me whether it is correct way of writing or not. So we have seen char data type and also we have seen string data type. So we understood this. Char means single character, we should keep inside the single quotation. String means we should keep inside the double quotations, multiple characters, right? Now observe this. In char variable, ch equal to, in the single quotations, I'm writing ABC. Is it valid or not? Is the statement valid or not? Char ch equal to ABC. This is invalid. This is invalid. Why it is invalid? Because we are trying to store multiple characters and we put in the single quotation. That itself is a mistake. And type is what? Char. So this is invalid. We cannot. Okay, suppose if you write like this, string ch equal to abc, is it valid or not? String ch equal to abc, valid or not? It is still invalid. Why? Even though this variable is can hold string, but we use single quotations, right? If you represent multiple characters, they should be in the double quotations. So single quotations not allowed. So this is also invalid statement. This is also invalid. Okay, now observe this one. String ch equal to a. Is it valid or not? String ch. Ch is a string variable, but I'm trying to store a character. So this is also invalid. Why? Because we put in the single quotations. Single quotations is always representing the character. So this is also invalid. Now observe this. String ch equal to double quotes a. Is it valid or not? Yes, this is valid. Because why? We define the variable as a string and we use double quotations. Within the double quotations, you can have a single character or multiple character, doesn't matter. It will treat it as a string. Okay. As soon as you put string type and double quotations, that is over. You can put either single character or multiple characters, doesn't matter. So now string ch contains one single character. So this is valid statement. So now you understood the difference between character and string. Character means always single character with single quotations. String means always having double quotations, but it can have single or multiple characters. Okay, that is a difference. Okay, now let us see Boolean type. Boolean. Boolean means what? It can accept only true or false. Let's say Boolean. It's a bool, or you can say BL, some variable name equal to true. True or false. Only two values are accepted. So I can just print BL. Right? So now if I just observe, so this will print BL value, which is true. Which is true. Now when I make it as a false, so then it will print false. So only true or false allowed. So Boolean variable allows only true or false. We can't store anything else. And moreover, we should not put the double quotations. Remember this. Okay, now let me just give you some example. You guys can tell me whether valid or not. Here I'm creating a Boolean value. Boolean. So let me just comment this. So Boolean BL equal to true. Is it valid or not? It is not valid. Why? Because we put this true in the double quotations. So as soon as you put this in the double quotations, that will be treated as what? String. So then you should specify the data type as a string. Then only allowed. Okay, so this is not valid. So this is not valid. Now I'll write something like this. Boolean BL equal to double quotation false. Is it valid or not? This is also not valid. Not valid because we put in the double quotations. As soon as you put that in the double quotations, which is treated as a string, that we cannot store in the Boolean variable. So this is clear. Now observe this. String BL equal to true. Is it valid or not? String BL equal to. This is also not valid because this is a Boolean data. Because we do not put in the double quotations. But the variable is what? String. Right? So this is also not valid. This is also not valid. Right? So string BL equal to true or false and not valid. Now string BL equal to true. Is it valid or not? String BL equal to true, valid or not? Obviously, it is valid because we put in the double quotations. As soon as you put in the double quotations, that will be treated as a string. So even data type is also string. So allowed. This is valid. Okay, so in the Boolean variable, I can store only true or false. We should not put double quotations. This is the syntax. Okay, so this is all about Boolean data type. So we have discussed all these data types. Byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, and then Boolean. So now is this clear, everyone? So how to work with the primitive data types. String is also a very huge concept. In the coming sessions, we will discuss more about strings. So in the upcoming sessions, you will understand exactly where we will use all these data types. In almost in every programming examples, in every solution, we will use all these data types. Okay. So we are just discussing the concept here. So once you understand the concept, you will exactly know where exactly we apply this. So what is the main purpose of creating the variables? What is the purpose of creating the variables? Why we need to create a variables? Yes, to store the data. If we want to store some data, we have to create a variables. And what is the use of data types? Why we need to use data types? Because before storing the data in a variable, we have to specify the data type. Otherwise, Java is not allowed. So data types must be specified before creating the variables. So once we have data in a variables, we can operate the data. By using the data, by using the variables, we can perform various types of operations. And then we have to know operators. So there are different type of operators are in Java. In the next class, I will discuss more about operators. Then you will exactly know where exactly we use these data types. So whatever topics we are discussing here, concept-wise, everything we will use in the applications. Because slowly we'll understand itself. Okay, so once you start giving more number of examples, you will understand exactly where you will use all these concepts. So Boolean is basically we use to store the status. For example, let us say simple example I will give you, you can understand where exactly we use a Boolean value. So most of the times to maintain the flag kind of thing, status kind of thing, we will use a Boolean data type. For example, let's say I have some numbers in my array. Okay, let's say I have different numbers here. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I want to find this particular number 3 is present in this array or not. Okay, I want to check this particular number is present in this array or not. So then what you will do? First, you will compare with the first number, not matched. So initially you will take one flag. Let's say this is a Boolean variable. Let's say false. Initially it is a false, representing not found. Okay. So let's say 3 matching with 1. Matched or not? No, not matching. Then we will compare with the 2. Not matching. Now comparing with the 3. Now here it is matched. As soon as it is matched, then we'll make this flag value is equal to true. So here we will maintain this Boolean variable to representing some status. Okay, some status. Suppose I'm doing some operation. Okay, it is in progress. So before starting this operation, okay, the status will be false. And after the completion of this operation, I'll make the status is true. So that is representing whether my process is started or not, or completed or not. So to represent that, we can use a Boolean variable. So like this, there are many scenarios. We will try to use this Boolean variable. You will understand. Definitely will understand this. I will show you so many examples in coming sessions. Okay. So where we can use byte data type. So whenever you want to store number, which is between -127 and 128, you can use byte. So there is no rule like you have to use only byte here, you have to use only integer here, you have to use only float here. Not like that. It is up to you. Depends on your own requirement. You can create any number of variables, any data type you can use. So there is no specific reason to use byte data type. Okay, if you have a small number, you can use byte data type, no problem. And if you have a little bit bigger number, then you can go with the shorter, or little more bigger, then you can go with the int, or more larger number, then you can go with the long. It depends upon the data size you have. Accordingly, you have to choose the right data type. So memory allocation is not that much important because we already discussed about the ranges, right? So this is a range actually. So I put some table, right? So here you can just remember this table. Not that much important, just understand every data type is having some range or some size. So whenever you create a 1 byte, right? So it is allocated some memory. In that memory, you can store the number between this range. So when I say 2 bytes of memory is allocated for short variable, and you can store this much of data. Similarly, when I create an integer variable, 4 bytes of memory is allocated, and this much of number you can store. So for every data type, there is a size. This much of size, the memory is allocated for that particular variable. Okay, literal is a simple or a character which we need to add after the data. So for example, if I look at this, especially for float and long, right? So you can see this is called literal. So whatever the character we are adding at the end of the value, normally we call as a literal. That is just a terminology, Java perspective. Okay. And for the float also, we use something called f. That is a literal. It can be lowercase or it can be uppercase. So this is designed by Java itself. Okay, so why they have put this literal for only float and for long, we don't know exact reason for. So why they have put like this. So we're just following as per Java instructions. This is just a terminology case, so we don't fix the meaning for this. Literal is just a terminology. We use this literal word in many places in multiple perspectives. Here we can just call it as a literal. That's it. Okay. So string literal is different. Okay, so we'll discuss that. Literal is the total meaning is totally different. So the same meaning should not apply in everywhere. So here the literal means just a one character which we need to add after the value. And the same literal keyword we will use in the different places for different meanings. So string literal is totally different than this one. So we'll again discuss that later, not related to this topic. Okay, so everyone is understood what is variable, what is a data type, and all those things. Okay, now at last, I will show you a small thing here and try to understand. Very, very important. Interview perspective, which is most important. Okay, let's try to understand this. So if you take any programming language, okay, it can be either statically programming language or dynamically programming language. Just a moment, don't write anything else. Okay. So before discussing that, I have one question. Difference between variable and constant. Variable can hold the data. Okay. And suppose in future, if you don't want to change the data. So normally when you create a variable, see, int a equal to 100. So a is a variable which can hold the data, right? Suppose in future, if you don't want to change the data, so by default, the value of the variable can always change. So later, if you want to change a value 200, you can make it as a 200. After that, if you want to make it 300, you can make it happen like this. Every time the value of the variable can always change. That is a default behavior. Okay, but sometimes in your programming, you don't want to change the value every time. So whatever value initially you have assigned, that is always fixed value. You don't want to change that value. Okay. In those cases, what you will do is you will additionally add one keyword here, like final. Or in some other programming languages, you will have one more keyword called constant, like this. So when you have this keyword in front of the data type, what will happen? This value we cannot change in future. So that variable is not allowed to change the value in future. In that case, we can call it as a constant variable. Okay. constant variable. So if the values keeps changing for the variable, that is just a normal variable. And if you are not able to change the value of the variable, that is called constant variable. Okay, now you understood what is variable, and constant is a keyword actually that is belongs to the variable. If the values keeps changing, it's just normal variable, default behavior. But if you are not changing this value, I don't want to allow to change this value in future, I can make this variable as a constant. In Java, we can use something called final. So then this variable is a constant variable, means we cannot change the value at any point of time. So that is the meaning. Okay, so shall we proceed? The last simple, another 2 minutes simple concept which we have, very important for interview perspective. So let us try to understand. Any other questions we will discuss later. Right. So in programming, if you take Java or Python or C#, whatever programming language you take, okay, and there are two kinds of programming languages: statically typed programming language, dynamically typed programming language. Observe very carefully. I'll tell you what it is. Java is statically typed programming language. Java is a statically typed programming language. Python is a dynamically typed programming language. Python is a dynamically typed programming language. So what is this? We need to first understand what is statically typed, what is dynamically typed. This topic is more related to variables and data types. So that's the reason I'm just covering this part. And into perspective, most important. Java is a statically typed programming language. Python is a dynamically typed programming language. So let's try to understand what it is. With some examples, I'll try to explain. Let us say int x equal to 100. I have created one integer variable x and I have stored 100 into x. Okay. Now, x is a integer type of variable so that I can store number. Right. Now, in x, I'll try to change the value of x. Initially 100. Now I want to become welcome. Is it possible or not in Java? As per your understanding, just tell me, is it possible or not in Java? X is integer 100. Then I'm saying x equal to welcome. Suppose x equal to 200 is possible or not? This is possible or not? It is possible. Why? Because here is 100 and here also 200. Both are numbers. So the value we can always change. But instead of 200, when you put welcome here, this is not allowed. In Java, it is not allowed. Why it is not allowed? Because x is already created with the integer type of data. Integer type of data type. So integer data type we already applied for this x variable. So we cannot change the data type. We can change the value, but we cannot change the data type. Initially, it is integer. Now, as soon as you put the value in the double quotation, it is a string. So it is not allowed. Okay, it is not allowed. This is not allowed. But in Python, it is allowed. In Python, it is allowed. It is Python, it is allowed. So why it is allowed? Because in Python, we are not going to specify any data types. In Python, data types already there, but we no need to specify the data types explicitly. That means you can directly write x equal to 100. So whenever you say x equal to 100, x will be automatically treated as an integer. X will automatically treated as an integer as per Python I'm talking about. Okay, you no need to write the data type explicitly. You simply can say x equal to 100, so x will be treated as integer. Now immediately when you say x equal to welcome, now what happens? Now x will be treated as a string. X will be treated as a string so that it can also hold string value. So this is possible in Python. So that is the reason it is dynamically typed programming language. In Java, it is statically typed programming language. So once you create a variable with one data type, you cannot store any other data type in the same variable. This is not allowed in Java. But in Python, it is allowed. Why? Because you no need to explicitly specify the data type. That is one thing. And whenever you change the value or data type anything, obviously it will be converted. So initially here X is integer. Here X is a string. Okay, so this is dynamically typed programming language. This is one feature. Dynamically programming language, statically programming language. So in the statically typed programming language, whatever data type we specify the variable, same data we have to add. You can change the value, but the same data value we have to add. But in Python, we can add any type of data. So in Java, we have to specify the data type. But in Python, we don't need to specify the data type. So based on the data which we have added, accordingly, the data type is automatically assigned to the variable. So here, if you say string here, so now X is a string variable. Okay. So this is a feature actually. So the Python is a dynamically typed programming language. Java is a statically typed programming language. So guys, you understood the difference. Statically typed programming language, dynamically typed programming language. Okay, just remember this point. Okay, so in the next class, we will discuss some more things. So we will stop it here. So after 1 or 2 sessions, then I will start giving assignments. So till that time, so you can just practice class demos, whatever I have given, and you can try your own also. So based on our examples, you can just try your own examples. And once you complete operations, conditional statement, looping statements, and everything, then we'll start giving some assignments. Because before starting assignment, you need to know some basic concepts. You have to be clear more about them. So then you can start creating, start doing the assignments. Okay. So just practice these class examples for today's session, tomorrow and today. And tomorrow we'll continue that. Okay. So I'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow's session.